I'm about to share a muscle growth tip with you that took me a very long time to figure out on my own. In retrospect, it's one of those things where if I had figured it out sooner, I would have built muscle significantly faster and more efficiently much earlier into my lifting career. That said, I know that I'm not the only one that's struggled to learn this in a timely manner. In fact, from my experience working as an online physique coach for the past 7.5 years, I know that there's many people that never end up learning it, to their misfortune. See, the thing about this muscle growth tip is that it's more than just something that will lead you to building more muscle. It's something that prevents and mitigates nagging pain and injury setbacks and ultimately has the potential to lead you to building muscle for many years longer than you would if otherwise. Rest assured, in this video, while showing you footage from my latest full body gym workout, I'm going to share exactly what this muscle growth tip is with you. My hope in sharing it with you is that you can take it, implement it, and experience significantly more muscle growth because of it. Before we get started, if you find this video to be helpful, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. Okay, let's dive in. When I was a younger lifter, I was fortunate enough to never really struggle with commitment to consistency, nor putting in high amounts of effort into my workouts. In fact, I was always kind of inherently driven to work out frequently and to really get after it. No, consistency and effort was not what I struggled with, but there was something that did really hold me back. Something that in retrospect acted as my Achilles heel and is even now something I struggle with at times, as I suspect many others do. It's this recurring pattern of behavior where I would progress in my sessions through means of lifting heavier and heavier or doing more and more reps until the point where things would start to fall apart. Here's what I mean when I say fall apart. First, my body would start to fall apart. I would feel nagging pains creep in, or sometimes more serious and sudden acute injuries would happen. And second, my technique would fall apart. As in, my exercise tempo would become less controlled, my range of motion would shorten, and the integrity of my exercise setup would often break down too. Is it a coincidence that I would often run into pains and injuries simultaneously with my exercise technique also falling apart? Not at all. The thing about poor technique and a beat-up body is that they don't pair up well at all when it comes to building muscle. In fact, when I would run into those kinds of situations, it's likely I was building a lot less muscle than I thought I was. I look back in hindsight now and think to myself, what was I thinking? And the honest answer to that was probably something like, I thought I could just will myself to keep progressing if I put enough effort into it. And I thought that that was what would build me more muscle. Did that approach work? Well, sometimes, sure. Forcing the body to build muscle does come through pushing its limits after all. So high amounts of effort are usually needed. There were times, however, and in my case, many times, where there's a bit more to it than just putting in high amounts of effort. In the instances where I would progress to the point of my body and technique beginning to fall apart, there was something I really struggled with, on top of just struggling with poor technique and body pain, that is. I struggled with letting go of where I was at within my progression, whether that be with the load I was lifting or the number of reps I was performing. I would really struggle to detach myself from those kind of things. Have you ever found yourself struggling with that? It was like I had some kind of mental block that stood in the way of me doing what actually needed to be done in order to A, fix my technique, B, prevent my body from falling apart, and C, to lead me to actually build more muscle. Looking back in hindsight, the solution is obvious. I would have really benefited from doing things like decreasing the amount of weight I was lifting or reducing my rep volume in favor of moving with good technique, avoiding unnecessary pain, and ultimately building more muscle. But man, it took me a long time to figure that out. I would just become so attached to the loads I was lifting, so attached to the prospect of continuing to progress through sheer force of will alone. But you know what it really came down to? It was my ego. The prospect of taking steps back, like lifting a bit lighter, would have hurt my ego. And what I mistakenly thought was that the pain felt by my ego would have been worse than the pain felt physically by my body, or the pain felt from my lack of real progress. The egocentric approach honestly really held me back. Of course, it's all clear to me now, but when you're in the thick of it, sometimes the answer doesn't seem to be so obvious. This brings me to the muscle growth tip of this video. Hitting a point in your progression where you run into technique breakdown and nagging pains or injuries is an ideal time to take a step back in your progression scheme in favor of reestablishing your technique using loads and volumes that you can control better to ultimately make more muscle growth progress. Absolutely. But that's not the real heart of the tip that I'm suggesting. The tip is to detach yourself from your ego, from your pride. With lifting weights, this can be a very tough thing to do, and on multiple levels. I can definitely say this based on my own experience anyways. On one level, it's tough because oftentimes people aim to build muscle and get stronger for the sake of growing their ego or their pride. So the prospect of detaching oneself from it is often more complicated than it might seem. And on another level, detaching yourself from your ego or your pride is tough because, well, as humans, it's just tough not to be ego-driven or prideful. It's tough not to be the center of your own universe. Something I've learned, however, is when it comes to lifting weights or practically anything else, is that detaching yourself from your ego is a means of kind of making everything better. Better for you, the people around you, and more. So, how can you really detach yourself from your ego when it comes to lifting weights? Well, from what I've learned, and am continuing to learn more about, is to focus on doing what you're doing, like lifting weights to build muscle, not just for yourself, but for someone or something outside of yourself, like building muscle so you can be strong, healthy, and perhaps look aesthetically pleasing to your spouse, or to be capable and strong for your kids. It could also be a reason outside of yourself, like aiming to build muscle and become stronger for transcendental religious reasons, like elevating the one body that God gave you. Now, I know I can't just sit here and tell you how to come up with your goals for lifting weights, but just wanted to give you some ideas on how you could incorporate non-ego driven goals into your personal reasons for lifting weights. In doing that, it might help you to further detach from your ego within your training sessions and thereby hopefully keep you from making the same kind of ego-driven mistakes that I made as a younger lifter, like lifting too heavy with poor technique to the point of injuring myself and missing out on gains in the process. Simply detaching myself from my ego in favor of lifting lighter and moving with better technique would have saved me a lot of physical pain and built me a whole heck of a lot more muscle. And there you have it. The muscle growth tip that took me years to figure out is to detach yourself from your ego. Though the prospect of doing things like intentionally taking steps back in your progression scheme might seem to hurt your ego, on the contrary, it might actually open you up to taking more steps forward, to build more muscle, and to avoid nagging pains and injuries. Easier said than done? Definitely. But it's one of the most important pieces of advice I could possibly give you. At this point, I would love to know your feedback. Let me know your thoughts and insights in the comment section below. Before this video comes to a close, I want to quickly let you know about the work that I do. When I'm not making YouTube videos or Instagram content, I work full-time as an online physique coach, where I help my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition. and I coach them through the process. I've been doing this work for over 7 years and love helping my clients to not only transform their bodies, but ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, feel free to hit the link in the description below, where you can learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how it can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how it can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.